Good morning, all you ADU enthusiasts. Derek, that ADU guy here. If you watched my last video talking about slab on grade construction for an accessory dwelling unit in an attempt to eliminate or reduce grade changes for aging in place, there's a ton of benefits to a slab on grade as opposed to a crawl space foundation for an accessory dwelling unit. But there are a couple of negatives, and I wanted to cover those. I thought it was only fair to talk about the upside and the downside of this process of how is our foundation and how is our finished floor going to kind of play into our finished product and into our end user. So with all that said, a slab on grade is really hard to protect. So once it's poured and it is going to be the finished floor, it's really, I mean, construction is a rough and tumble, messy, dirty. There's a lot of heavy things falling on the ground all the time. So the process of framing a house and protecting a floor is hard. So if we're gonna build a standard crawl space foundation and we have a wood deck, there's blocks nailed all over the floor to hold bracing. We drop tools on the sub deck all the time with no worry. But when the finished floor is exposed during all those processes, it's hard to protect it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Some strategies that I've used in the past have been to lay down OSB on the whole floor right after you stand the walls and just leave them there until the drywall is ready to go in. And that way, if you drop a hammer or you drop a beam or you drag a brace across the floor with a couple nails sticking out of it, you don't have these all this damage to your finished floor. And then the second thing that's worth talking about is the cost difference. So we'd like to think that if we're not going to build a footing and a stem wall and buy all the hardware and buy all the floor joists and hang them and insulate and deck, we're going to save a lot of money on the concrete floor slab on grade process. And that's not always true. And there's a couple reasons why. One of them is there's a lot of excavation that needs to happen. There's a lot of backfill, so you have to bring in a bunch of rock. You've got to have equipment here. You've got to have a dump truck to fill in that void that's normally the crawl space with compactable shale, usually 4-inch, and then the top 6 or 8 inches is 3/4 inch minus. That'll compact really nicely for the floor. So if we don't do a ton of really good prep with really good base rock, we're gonna have problems with that finished floor, and that slab on grade could potentially settle and crack. A lot of times, you'll want to use a vapor barrier under a slab so you don't have any moisture ever creeping up. And when you put a vapor barrier under a slab on grade that's your finished floor, the water in the concrete doesn't want to drain out during the pour, so it's a lot more work for your concrete crew to do a nice finish working above a vapor barrier. And then the last piece of the expense difference is that there's usually a rigid foam requirement, an insulation foam that's probably, usually depending on your jurisdiction, underneath the slab and then also around the entire perimeter of your slab on grade. And then that has to be flashed with fairly expensive, really deep metal flashing with a nice little angle on the top of it that's going to tuck behind our siding. So it's been my experience that it's about cost neutral to do a slab on grade. But again, our end user is in mind, and our main projection point is not price, it's ease of use and how do we get in and out of this without climbing stairs. So yeah, I felt it was worth talking about the positives and the negatives of a slab on grade concrete finished floor. Hope everybody's having a good day. More than a like, more than a subscribe. Just use this information if you can to take action and build an accessory dwelling unit. Thanks again.